pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Spencer, I see you call the roll.
Levin.
Here.
Park.
Here.
Honquist.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Brennan.
Here.
Sabatino.
Here.
Deuter.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Toledo.
Here.
York.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
14 present, 0 absent. We have a quorum. On to agenda item 3. We're excited to announce that this week is Municipal Clerks Week, May 6th through the 12th, and I have an official proclamation here that I will read part of it. I will not read all of it, but it does show that we do value our clerks and the work that they do. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk is a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of municipal clerk is the oldest among public service, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at all other levels, whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality, impartiality, rendering equal service to all, and whereas the municipal clerks serve as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Steve Morley, Mayor of the City of Elmhurst, do hereby recognize the week of May 6th through the 12th, 2018, as Municipal Clerks Week. Now we have one of our municipal clerks out there. Ellen, please raise your hand. And Patty, and I've asked both Ellen and Patty to join me up front so we can take a quick picture.
Okay.
And be acknowledged by everyone in the room.
Right.
Who's going to take a picture for us? Did great. Mike Kopp.
Howard, are you going to make a statement about the Lawrence Commission?
Look at that. Ellen, I'm going to need you to take a picture. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, are we going to squeeze
Hold on,
this?
I got this. I'll get
Yeah,
this.
we're just waiting.
Got it? Can you squeeze through there?
Watch your step.
I'll stand in the middle. I'll hide behind you. A round of applause. A few words, and then I know all the signal will be helpful. I personally thank you for it. So go ahead, Patty. You have something to add?
I just want to say thank you, Mayor Morley, and to remind our residents that the clerk's office does a lot of things for you, and I urge you to look on our city website to see the complete list of what we do. Also, take a moment to look at posted news on the website, and you can get some good information about the history of the municipal clerk. And I also would like to recognize my deputy, Ellen Cyprian, for her excellent service to our residents.
She's not going down the stairs.
Yeah.
I'm Norm.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate it, Ellen.
Thank you. The clerk isn't here right now. Well, that's why Steve's there. He says catch anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Ellen.
I haven't lost anybody yet.
Thank you, Patty.
Well, hopefully we'll do
Your hard work, Patty.
Patty. Thank you very much.
Keep us under
It's a
control.
pleasure.
Thank you, Ellen. Great. Thank you. Be careful,
Such a
remember.
good job. I know how much work you put in.
Thanks, Ellen. Watch your step. Watch your step.
was out with my ex,
Exactly.
because you have to stop. They live in the same town.
I know, and then you forget.
And you forget.
Very nice. Okay.
Equally easy for Excel.
Yeah.
So what are you doing this year? Are you
Learn
training
something
for
every day. You've had just about
golf, or are you doing nothing?
2 weeks.
Oh, really?
I didn't tell you about that?
No. We don't even talk.
Oh, you're every good. We should probably go out to lunch and catch up.
That?
We should probably go grab some lunch and catch up.
Yeah, we could do that.
Turn of the century.
something to
I understand you're going to do a
Okay, before I move on to 4, I should also recognize what I'll call a retired clerk. Elaine Leibovitz is also here, serving as our treasurer, but used to be clerk here at the city of Elmhurst. Okay, on to agenda item 4, receipt of written communications from the public. At this time, is there anybody in the audience who has anything they would like to submit to the clerk? Please raise your hand if you have anything written you'd like to submit, okay? Lisa, come on up. Oh,
Careful.
oh, watch that.
Don't fall into that trap.
Okay, anyone else, any written communications? Seeing none, we'll move on to public forum. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to address the council and specifically the chairman of the meeting on any item they so choose. When your name is read, we ask that you approach the microphone over here to my right, your left, just behind Chief Root there. We ask out of respect for the work that we have to get done here this evening and out of respect for other folks that may want to speak, that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you go over your 3 minutes, I will give you a gentle reminder and ask you to wrap up. I think I know the answer to this question, Clerk Spencer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. At this time, is there anybody who signed up on our sign-in sheet that wishes to speak tonight?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
And I'll start with Isla Jean Anderson.
And the one thing I'll mention, go ahead, Isla Jean, just on the back microphone, not the one, there we go. We are recording this, so we ask that you state your name for the record. Address is optional. The floor is yours.
Isla Jean Anderson. And before I start, I want to say, when I start talking, my voice wobbles, so bear with me because what I say, I think, is important. Isla Jean Anderson. I've lived in Elmhurst for over 50 years and now reside at 100 West Butterfield Road on the south side of Butterfield. We understand that the city has taken possession of land in our area for flood relief. Not for us, for as far as I know, we have never flooded. But this is for the homes north of Butterfield. Not knowing what the area would look like from the program, we visited different sites. We visited these sites on the same day, and it had not rained for a while. And at Bryan and Adams, at that site, people were walking around with their dogs and jogging and just enjoying the green, open space. On York Street by the fire station, it was the same thing. And any time I passed by there, I've never noticed water in there. Then we went to the Yorkfield site between Harrison and Lexington. And when I looked down through the fence, we could not believe that anything that bad was in Elmhurst. There were puddles of water and mud, and it brought to my mind an open sewer. Other people that were with me said that there was a smell. It didn't look like Elmhurst or anything we would want in our town. When you say Elmhurst, we think of a nice town where anyone would want to live. Would any of you like to live in that site, to have that in your front or backyard? And we also were told that there was a goose problem. And we all know that with puddles of water, there will be mosquitoes. Out my window, we overlook a school, K through 12. Kids are playing outside all the time, no matter the weather, hot, cold, rain, or snow, they're outside. Having a site like that, the one in Yorkfield, would be a health and safety hazard. And where there is a fence, kids are going to climb it. And besides mosquitoes, would you like to be stepping in goose poop? Or see the kids where they're playing, where the geese have pooped? We urge you to never build another site like that one in Yorkfield, anywhere in Elmhurst. Let's keep Elmhurst looking green, open, and park-like. In the past, we've got national awards for our town. Let's not go downhill. And if you would not like to live by the ditch site, don't vote for anyone else ever to have to. Keep us green, park-like, mosquito and goose poop free. And how did we get in this mess?
Ben Silver, Citizen Advocacy Center.
Bless you. Thank you. Bless you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ben Silver, and I am a community lawyer with the Citizen Advocacy Center at 182 North York Street. CAC promotes civic engagement and encourages public participation. I'm here tonight to highlight an 18-month-long civic engagement effort that has thus far been ignored by the majority of the Elmhurst City Council. Nicole Virgil and her family first asked this council in late 2016 to address whether hoop houses, a sort of temporary greenhouse for extending the vegetable growing season, would be allowed in the city. After public comments by dozens of residents to both this council and the Development Planning and Zoning Committee, all there is to show for the effort are 2 referrals that the DPZ has not touched for a year. These residents have put in the time, done the research, and presented this council with all the evidence as to why hoop houses should be allowed in Elmhurst, and most of you have ignored them. This city has never given any reason that hoop houses shouldn't be allowed, and in fact allows them in commercial settings and for nonprofits or governmental entities in residential neighborhoods with a waiver. Officials have cited emails opposing hoop houses, but refused to provide the emails or even any reasons cited by the emails. Public citizens have done far more research into the costs and benefits of hoop houses than anyone associated with the city. While I appreciate the few of you who have engaged with Ms. Virgil, I'm incredibly discouraged that the council and DPZ committee have taken no official action in over a year and a half, despite one of the largest sustained civic engagement efforts in Elmhurst in years. In fact, the hoopless struggle is now the subject of a short documentary, which premiered at the Abbey on Saturday. Every alderman was invited to attend. None did. Tonight, you'll hear once again from your constituents. All they are asking is that you hear and debate their reasonable public policy concern. I believe it's every public official's duty to do just that. Please listen to your constituents. Thank you.
Keith Clives.
Yes, my name is Keith Cliver, and I am a concerned citizen, and I too am very supportive of the hoop houses.
Sir, can you just raise the mic so you're not...
My name is Keith Cliver. I'm a concerned citizen, and I'm very supportive of the idea of hoop houses, and all we're doing is requesting a hearing. We just want to be heard.
Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, Clerk Spencer, we have, I think, 24, maybe more, folks that want to speak tonight, and in addition to that, we have an entire meeting to get through. I appreciate your support and appreciate your comments, but I'd ask for refraining for applause after every comment. Thank you.
Okay, Raymond Langdash, I do it wrong.
My name is Raymond Wallace Langosh Jr. I'm here to speak on the retention, South Elmhurst retention off of Butterfield Road. I live at 110 West Butterfield Road. I'm here on behalf of the entire Royal York community, all 128 homeowners. Thank you for taking time to listen to our comments. We have been trying hard to come up with a win-win situation for the city and Royal York in the matter of storm detention. Our residents have taken a strong interest in trying to avoid what we freely feel is unsafe and unsightly 28-foot pit in our front yard. When we first became aware of what was planned, we came to the October 2nd meeting of the City Council to ask for your consideration of a land swap. You complied with our request and came up over the next couple months with a new drawing that seemed like a good idea. Since that time, we have been working hard to put all the legal requirements in place. On March 5th, we received from the city additional requirements that we were to get an appraisal of both properties that would be required by to get insurance from Chicago Title and Trust. This was to be done at our expense. We began the next day to comply all these requirements. At this time, we are waiting for the completion of these projects. On April 23rd, we were made aware that we need 100% approval of our owners in order to be insured by CTT. By April 29th, through the diligent work of many, we have 100% approval by all our residents on signed forms about this land swap. Thank you again for your patience and consideration of this plan, for all the hard work that you are putting into solving this issue. Thanks.
Lisa Gerhold Dirks.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Gerhold Dirks. I'm speaking on behalf of the Elmhurst Cool Cities Coalition, a local volunteer group working to strengthen our community with sustainable solutions. We sent the following comments to the DPZ committee members in April, a week and a half ago or so, and I want to share them with the full City Council this evening. Elmhurst Cool Cities Coalition supports creating a new code or ordinance specifically to allow hoop houses in Elmhurst. More than ever, our community is focused on sustainable living, which includes more residents growing vegetables in their gardens. Winter gardening extends the growing season in cool climates, reduces vehicle miles traveled to and from the grocery store, reduces waste by eliminating the purchase of food packaging, reduces spoilage by allowing the grower to harvest only what is currently needed, allows the home gardener to cost-effectively grow nutritious, organic, non-GMO, pesticide-free food, and in some cases reduces waste for gardeners who compost their food waste back into the soil. In addition to all of the above, gardening is a healthy activity for young and old alike, no matter the season. When the community-wide sustainability plan was initiated 4 years ago, it was driven by residents who wanted the city to put sustainability issues at the forefront. Although the plan does not currently include strategies related to gardening, residents have clearly demonstrated their desire to grow their own food and extend the growing season. Change desired and requested by the community requires action by elected officials. As a couple of examples from the Cool Cities perspective are renewable aggregation or renewable energy with electric aggregation that we brought a lot of people in for and showed support for that, and also most recently the food scrap collection program that's brand new coming up for the waste contract. The city's sustainability policy states that community awareness, responsibility, participation, and education are key elements of sustainable community. All community members, including individual citizens, must, number one, be aware of their impact on the environment. Number two, must take responsibility for reducing, eliminating, and balancing that impact. And three, must take an active part in community efforts to address sustainability concerns. The policy also states that cross-sector partnerships are necessary and achievable to achieve sustainable goals. Quote, partnerships among city government and residents are necessary to achieve a sustainable community. A code allowing for hoop houses could be the next of these partnerships. The Elmhurst Cool Cities Coalition and Elmhurst Community support this. Alderman Kennedy, I'm going to quote you from the April 23rd Public Works meeting. You said that the desires of the few, this was on a different topic, but you said the desires of the few can't outweigh the desires of the many. I think that applies to this situation as well. We respectfully request the DPZ committee begin hoop house discussions, providing due diligence and dialogue with the community, and with the goal of reaching an amicable, collaborative resolution. We envision those conversations strengthening the city's relationship with the community by prioritizing residents' needs, providing a solution for gardeners, and reinforcing the city's commitment to sustainability. Thank you.
Dan Virgil, 598 Fairview Avenue.
Hi, Dan Virgil. There's probably many ways to judge the effectiveness of our elected officials. Responsiveness to citizen complaints and requests, certainly one of them. In this way, I'd have to say, and many others I think would also agree, that the elected officials here in Elmhurst have failed dramatically. With the hoop house issue, which was brought up 18 months ago, we've talked to many folks within the city council, within the Department of Planning and Zoning Committee, Development Planning and Zoning Committee, and there has been no progress made. You know, while we appreciate the aldermen that have made the referral to the committee has done nothing with it. This has been sent to the committee twice. We were told initially that the committee wouldn't take it up because of an ongoing appeal of the hearing officer, the arbitration that we had back in December. That has ended 5 months ago. Several of our supporters came to one of the meetings earlier this year, a few months ago, and we were told that it would be put on the agenda. It has not. All we're asking for is a discussion of this topic. That hasn't happened. It hasn't even been placed on the agenda. I don't know how anybody could take a look at our officials here and say that this is responsiveness to citizens. Many, many people have showed up either for city council meetings or the committee meetings to talk about this issue, and it has gone nowhere. It's very discouraging, it's very frustrating, and I would expect that our elected officials would do better. Thank you.
Susan O'Donnell Warren, 627 South Poplar Avenue.
Hi. I'm a longtime resident of Elmhurst. I'd like to say...
Could you state your full name, please?
Susan O'Donnell Warren.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I am so disappointed that we have to be here tonight. I've raised my children in Elmhurst. I did not grow up in Elmhurst. I know many of you did. So I know you had excellent civics teachers, the best. You all understand that there is no separate and unequal treatment of residents. There are hoop houses on commercial and residential property. If there was a problem with the Virgil's hoop house, there were clear procedures that could have been followed. This was always going to be a win-win or a lose-lose. And I've said that at 2 zoning committee meetings. I've said that in a private and polite conversation with my alderman. Either the city would propose what will work in terms of sustainable gardening, and Nicole and her husband were more than eager to work with that, and they would have their produce and they would be able to teach their children, and Elmhurst would look responsive. Elmhurst would look responsible. Elmhurst would look like a place that cares about sustainable living and inclusivity. That's not the Elmhurst I'm seeing, and it's hard to say that, but this is the Elmhurst that made the headlines for looking into outlawing eye rolling as disorderly conduct. We now have a doctoral student in Denmark writing about the inadequacy of our town's response to the Virgil's successful attempts at sustainable gardening. So as we see it, there is a misapplication of the law and inconsistent enforcement of the misapplied law. The city says the ordinances broken are mobile home zoning ordinance stating you cannot live in a mobile home, a tent, or a membrane structure, or a residential lot in Elmhurst. This is all fine and good. No one is living in the hoop house. I've been in Nicole's home, it is lovely. B, building code stated that a resident cannot make a permanent building out of a membrane. They agree with this. The hoop house is not permanent. It's there to extend the growing season so that you can start vegetables earlier in the spring and extend it into the fall. Her children have a wonderful stand. They provide amazing produce. You can't buy it at Whole Foods. If your children had that stand and worked hard in that garden, if it was your son or your daughter, and their parents went for 18 months saying, can we have a hearing? Can we find out what we can do? And it just kept getting stalled, you would not be happy. You would not be proud of your town. So all we are asking is for fairness and that you do the right thing. I know you all care about this town. I know you put in a lot of hours. I'm asking you to please, let's get it together on this. Even if the city did not license temporary use hoop houses in a commercial setting, we have current evidence of temporary and permanent membrane structures all over Elmhurst.
Liz Ambrosi.
Hi there, Liz Ambrosi, 257 Oak Street. Speaking about the hoop house. In Elmhurst, just north of North Avenue, there is a hoop house which the homeowners report has been in place for 10 plus years year-round. In College View, there is a cabana providing an outdoor living room adjacent to a grill, which is large enough to easily be seen by Google Earth, which is permitted and has been up for years. There are gazebos and hot tubs and tents, all utilizing membranes all over town. We do not say that they should be taken down. We simply ask how only one family can be prosecuted for having something which is clearly permissible for other families all over Elmhurst. Some have suggested that the Virgil family hoop house is an eyesore. Please look at the image of their hoop house from the street. Most people in search of it drove right by it because it is so unobstructed. The eyesore argument is simply not credible. What is the difference between the Virgil membrane and everyone else's membrane? We can't know since the aldermen will not examine it, not speak of it or discuss it. The Virgils lost a growing season due to a city council that applies their ordinances unevenly and without explanation. I've been here before speaking and also in the zoning committee meeting. I'm a resident of Elmhurst for 15 years. Gardening is important to me personally, but I think I guess I'm just so disappointed and baffled. I can go on and on as I did several times before. Gardening is fun and it's great and it's healthy and all of that. I think my biggest concern here is the fact that you have a family who's lived in Elmhurst for nearly 20 years. Really great, wonderful, family-focused, living green, exemplary family, and that they have been running around in circles asking something of the city and being totally ignored, while, as I just mentioned, so many other hoop houses and membrane structures are in town all over the place. So it means either, I don't know if you guys don't like her personally, or if, I don't know. I'm just frustrated. I think this is so unfair and unkind, and it's become so personal for me. I think I'm just aching for this family that's being so unkindly treated, and I don't know how out of all of you guys, how no one has stepped up to the plate and collaborated together and just said, we gotta do something about this. This is not where we should be focusing so much energy on people trying to grow in their backyard. That's it. I can go on and on, but good, yeah.
Juliet Ambrosi.
Hi, Juliet Ambrosi, 257 Oak. The alderman, the mayor, and the city manager were invited to attend the Hoop House documentary premiere on Saturday with many people from the community in attendance. None of you chose to attend. The Virgils and their supporters have attended many city council meetings and many DP and Z committee meetings, all to no avail. There's always some reason given as to why it will not be discussed. The whole time, there have been membrane structures all over Elmhurst. If you direct your eyes to the back of the room, please. Which one of these is not like the others? All of these membrane structures are allowable and should be allowed. We make no argument against other people's membranes. We simply state that if it is okay for everyone else, then it is okay for the Virgils. An alderman and a city staff member have suggested that we pursue a text amendment at a personal cost to the Virgils of $6,000. This is an absurd proposition. Why should the Virgils pay to do what any other Elmhurst resident can already do? There are some on the DP and Z committee who are suggesting that when they discuss the Virgil backyard hoop house, that the research be done simultaneous with the research that needs to be done on air-inflated outdoor stadium covers, an item being considered for Elmhurst College. That makes no sense, as a backyard hoop house is dissimilar to an air-inflated outdoor football stadium dome, cover in size, purpose, construction, etc. Nicole Virgin sent City Manager James Grabowski a letter asking to work on an ordinance over 18 months ago. She submitted sample ordinances from similar suburban municipalities, and the Virgils are repeatedly told that the city will get to it.
Andrew Von Gorp.
Andrew Van Gorp. With respect, Alderman Honquest has 1, forcibly expired the hoop house topic without notice in May of 2017. When Dan Virgil attended a committee meeting in July to inquire on the progress with our issue, he was dismissed by Alderman Honquest, given no information, although he could have easily disclosed this information. Alderman Honquest told Mr. Virgil that someone from the city would get in touch with him. 4 days later, he was contacted by the city and told that the issue had been forcibly expired. 2, when we were able to get our topic referred for the second time to the committee in August 2017, Alderman Honquest informed our group that he would not be taking up our issue because there was a judicial matter pending. This is a policy without teeth or meaning. Several attorneys have been consulted and informed us that there was no need for the city to avoid speaking to the Virgils. The City Council has been free from the beginning to evaluate and legislate without delay, and yet we were put off. 3, according to Elmhurst's own ordinances, the committees are supposed to report back to the council every 90 days about any issue before them which has not been addressed. A FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, shows that no such report has been submitted to the council, given a written explanation, provided the committee to the council as to the reasoning behind the delay in handling any given topic. The list of outstanding topics not yet resolved compiled by city staff for the DP and Z committee does not suffice as a report. The statute itself states that the report is to be written by the committee, inconsistent application compliance with city ordinances. 4, in January, when the judicial issue was concluded, we returned to the DP and Z committee and asked if the topic might now be addressed. Alderman Honquest told us that he would consider placing the topic on the agenda, but not immediately because he and the committee were too busy. Thank you.
Vicki Fitzmaurice.
Hello, my name's Victoria Fitzmaurice. I live at 40 West School Street. Regarding that last sentence from Andrew's statement, Alderman Hornquist told us that he would place the topic on the agenda, but not immediately because he and the committee were too busy. Alderman Hornquist, that was in January, still on May 7th tonight, has not placed the Hoop House on the agenda. Taking a closer look at the minutes of the last 10 scheduled dates for the DP&Z committee meetings, the published minutes reveal some sense of the workload. On November 27th, the committee met for 38 minutes. On December 11th for 60 minutes. On January 8th for 42 minutes. On January 22nd for 50 minutes, only because 13 Hoop House supporters spoke during public comment. February 12th, we might assume the meeting lasted more than an hour, but minutes do not say when the meeting started. 17 people spoke during public comment about the Elmhurst extended care case. Reminder, this is just the zoning committee meeting. February 26th, 1 hour and 44 minutes. March 12th, 33 minutes. March 26th, canceled. April 9th, 3 hours, 8 minutes. April 23rd, no minutes yet published. 5 of the meetings were done in an hour or less. 1 of the meetings was canceled. 1 of the meetings do not have minutes available for the public as of yet. 3 meetings lasted between 1 and approximately 3 hours, an amount of time that many constituents would not feel is excessive for a city council committee meeting. The issue of membrane structures must be taken up by the DP&Z committee. All reasonable membrane structures should be protected by city ordinance, cabanas, hot tubs with curtains, hoop houses, tents, gazebos with membrane covers. All of these are accessory structures. What people do in their backyards, so long as they are not harming anyone else, should have a wide latitude of permission. This family and their supporters are asking the council to direct the committee, perhaps, or at least for the committee to give an answer and give us a hearing on this issue. Thank you.
Edgar Powell.
Good evening. My name is Edgar Powell. I live at 159 South Cottage Hill, apartment 314 in Elmhurst. So I'm going to talk about the public comments that I gave at this council's meeting around 3 months ago on February 20th. During that meeting, I mentioned Chapter 2.09F of the Elmhurst Municipal Code. That was referenced by one of the other members of the public here today. That section requires committees to produce written reports on referrals not disposed of for more than 90 days. This issue impacts not only the Virgils and the Hoop House referral, but also any other referral currently pending before the committees. So to explain further, let me break down the code for you. Chapter 2.09F reports, each regular or special committee of the City Council shall, at the first regular meeting of the City Council in August, November, February, and May, report in writing to the Mayor and the City Council the status of all matters which have been referred to said committee and not disposed of for more than 90 days. Said report shall contain a brief summary of the progress or the referred matter. So here are the facts. 1, DPZ is a committee of the City Council, so it is subject to this code. 2, the Hoop House referral was approved on August 21st of last year, well over 90 days ago. Therefore, that is also subject to this code. 3, today, this is the first regular meeting of the City Council in May. Therefore, the code applies. 4, DPZ is required to submit a written report at this meeting. 5th, such a report must be addressed to the Mayor and the City Council. And 6th, such a report must summarize the progress on the referred matter. I've been told that there's this document on board docs. It's called the committee pending list. It's basically an Excel spreadsheet. I've been told that that document meets this requirement, but I believe it does not, for the following reasons. First, the document is not submitted during a City Council meeting. Second, the document is not addressed to the Mayor and the City Council. And third, the document does not summarize the progress on the referred matter. Therefore, I believe that Chapter 2.09F of the Code has been violated in this case, and I ask that you require the committee to submit their report at the next meeting. Furthermore, recent events have suggested that the City Council has run afoul of other procedural requirements. 3 weeks ago, I mentioned during public comment that there were 4 open investigations by the Public Access Bureau in the Office of the Illinois Attorney General. They're looking into alleged violations of the Open Meetings Act. Well, that's no longer true. There are not 4 open investigations. In fact, now there are 7. And an 8th one might come sometime this week. The new violations include the Economic Development Commission voting to endorse a TIF without placing it on their agenda, and also the DPZ committee, under the supervision of Alderman Toledo, approving a political appointment of Alderman Mulliner without notifying the public of this action. Clearly, these violations need to be taken seriously. I appreciate the steps that the council has taken to address several of the concerns thus far. I've noticed you've been taking certain actions in many of your prior meetings, and I very much appreciate that. I also had a meeting with Mayor Morley and Mr. Grabowski last week to start to address some of these issues. We were also joined by a board member from the League of Women Voters, and I'd say we had a fairly pleasant conversation back then. So overall, I'm quite glad about the progress that you've made so far, and I look forward to seeing what you would do to further improve your processes going forward. Thank you.
Stacy Nault.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Nault. I live at 619 South Sunnyside. I've lived here for 5 years. I live directly, or not directly behind, but a few doors down behind the Virgils. And I understand this whole thing came about because of a complaint by a neighbor, one neighbor. I live just a few doors down from that neighbor. So I could see Nicole's backyard from my backyard. I did not think that the hoop house was any kind of an eyesore. I could not hear it. There was no noise. And actually, I have very much enjoyed what Nicole's garden has brought to our neighborhood. She's fostered a beautiful sense of community. Her children have been wonderful in sort of mentoring our children about what it is to garden, what it is that, where is it that food comes from. These are wonderful things to teach our kids. And she's been a wonderful neighbor. She keeps a beautiful home, a beautiful yard, and I support her 100%. I would love to see an ordinance written on this matter, because I too have been inspired by her and have begun gardening, and I would like to know what my parameters are for wintertime gardening. Thank you.
Michael Childress.
Good evening. My name is Michael Childress, and I'm the president of the NAACP DuPage County. I'm here on behalf of the Virgils. At the beginning of this meeting, we were asked to stand and pledge allegiance to that flag. That at the end of that allegiance, the words "with liberty and justice for all" was stated. We all made that same pledge. So I have some questions that I have, with all due respect for this body, and why the citizens should be entitled to the answers. First question I have is, what is the ordinance, and how was she violating that ordinance? Second, why is an elected body refusing to speak to a tax-paying citizen? 3, why is she being singled out when there's clearly other structures on people's properties? 4, when will the tax-paying voters in this room today and in your town have their issue addressed? 5, what does leadership look like when it's working? And 6, what does liberty and justice for all mean to you? Thank you.
Annette Armstrong.
My name is Annette Armstrong, and I've been serving on the committee to establish a public arts commission. We appreciate the council considering the report that will be before you tonight, and we all believe, those of us on the committee, very strongly that the commission will be an asset to the entire community. And a shout out to Alderman Marty Deuter for her leadership on this issue. Thank you.
John McKinnon.
Hi, I'm John McKinnon, Director of the Elmhurst Art Museum. I don't want to take any more of your time tonight, but just wanted to say thank you for bringing the Commission of Public Art tonight before you, and I fully support it. I hope to partner with the city in many ways. Thank you.
Rob I don't know. I'm not going to try it. That's okay, Rob. Rob England. England, okay.
My name is Rob England. Thank you very much.
That was a Y.
I'm going to set my time for 3 minutes. I'm going to keep it to it, all right?
That was a Y.
With respect, I have one question to ask all of you. If you could do something that was good for the environment, that was easy to do, would you do it? If you could do something that was good for your community, and good for your community's health, and good for your community's education, would you do it? We're not asking for a lot of heavy lifting. What we're asking for is allow a discussion to be had for the Hoop House. Allow that to happen. It's very simple. So when you go to bed and lay down, ask yourself, am I going to do the right thing? And it's really easy. And I think there's an opportunity here, and I think there's a chance where you can pivot, and you can say, it's time to do the right thing. And I'm new to this fight. I've learned about it, and this fight's gonna get larger and larger and larger. Today there's 24 of us speaking. What about the next time? And the next time and the next time? We'll stay here till midnight. I'll come back every time until this is heard, because this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to do what is right for your community. Thank you.
Yolanda.
Hi, Jelana Kakavas, 284 South Kenilworth Avenue, Elmhurst, obviously.
Could you spell that, please?
K-A-K-A-V, like Victor, A-S, like Sam. First name, J-O-L-A-N-A. I am not nearly as well-versed as all of the people that have spoken before me. However, I concur with everything that they have said and then more. I'd only like to simply state one thing and read one thing, and that is, if you look at the elmhurst.org website, and bear with me one second. Under the menu, under subheadings, under sustainability, under community, under all these, you drop down all these different menus, you come upon something called green living. The city of Elmhurst is dedicated to the enhancement and protection of the immediate and long-term well-being of the city, its citizens, and its natural environment. To that end, the city of Elmhurst will consider sustainable environmental practices as an integral component of its leadership role in the community. I suggest that everybody reflect on that, including the DPZ committee, and let's take up this hoop house and let's get this thing rolling. Thank you.
Nicole Virgil.
There's too many of you that are comfortable sitting where you are and
Please state your
pretending.
name for the record.
Nicole Virgil, 598 South Fairview. You all know who I am. You're too comfortable right now. I'm speaking individually. There's individual people up there that I'm talking to. I'm not just talking to a body of people. You're all individuals. You have the ability to speak as individual people. There are opportunities in your life when you can see impediments, where you can see inertia, and you can stand up and say, you know what, something's wrong here. Individually, all of you have the capacity to do that, and none of you have. Collectively, as a group, You've heard a variety of OMA violations and other episodes in this past year where collectively as a group, you have not been responsive. You don't have to be that way just because you set a tone 18 months ago. Perhaps maybe some of you didn't know what a hoop house was, or maybe you had never seen one or thought about membrane structures or weren't familiar with the code. We're past that now. We have membrane structures all over Elmhurst, and what it looks like to me is that they're not illegal. They're just illegal for me. Individually, can you process that that is not legitimate? That you are putting me off, putting my family off, putting all our supporters off for literally years, and giving us a variety of excuses as to why we can't be spoken to? You're too comfortable. Will no one stand from amongst the group of you and say, you know what, this is wrong? There are people doing already. It's de facto legal. It's already being done. And you're trying to stretch a code. Mr. Grabowski, you told me that you could apply a code to what you saw fit, but you only applied it to me. These objects are all over the city in plain sight. Will no one stand and defend my right to liberty in my backyard only to do that which is already being done with your tacit permission? Not to do something extravagant or dangerous. You give license to them. I FOIA'd and saw the temporary use permits, so clearly the construction of our hoop house, which has been tested up to 80-mile-an-hour winds and carried snow loads, you don't have a problem with the construction or the sound or the size. You've given temporary use permits for almost identical construction, albeit on a commercial lot, but it's not a safety issue. It's not a usage issue. But since no one will talk to me, I can't find what is the issue? The cabanas are okay, the gazebos are okay. Will no one person stand and say something has gone afoul? Will one of you stand? Some of you are my neighbors. Some of you, at least one, you know who you are. You've been in my backyard and said it was okay and great, and you didn't know what the problem was. But you won't stand with me here. Is this who you want to be? Is this who you are? Is this where I live? Seriously? It's time to do better. I'm not going away. How many people do I have to bring to get on your agenda? How many people? How many posts? How many newspaper articles? How many media interviews, radio shows do I have to go on just for you to talk to me? Is this where I live? Is this who you are?
She was the last to sign up.
Okay, that's it for public forum this evening for those who signed up. Okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't call you. Well, I apologize for that.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. Hello, good evening. My name is
No,
Laura.
Laura, hold on one second. Just one second.
Sure.
Because I know, I don't want to run into this again. Is there anybody who, two things. Is there anybody who has signed up who hasn't been recognized yet? So just Ms. Calvert, okay? Just so everyone knows, after Ms. Calvert, I hope I'm saying that properly.
You are.
Anybody who did not have an opportunity to sign up on this sign-in sheet, because I know we had to get our meeting started and there was a bunch of people back there. You will be given an opportunity to speak after this, and I'll recognize you after this. So go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Calvert. I am the Executive Director of Advocates for Urban Agriculture. We are a coalition of individuals, organizations, and businesses that work together to support and expand urban agriculture in the Chicago region. Our mission is to empower urban growers to foster thriving communities through equitable food systems and sustainable agriculture. We support the use of season extension techniques, including hoop houses. They're an important and commonly used tool to extend the growing season. We see them in community gardens, on urban farms, and increasingly in backyards, at home gardens in urban and peri-urban areas. Our organization has partnered with the City of Chicago's Department of Development and Planning and the USDA to extend federal funds to urban growers in the City of Chicago to construct and maintain hoop houses. I'll repeat that one more time. The City of Chicago so supports hoop houses that they're extending funds to community residents on residentially zoned land to construct hoop houses. In the city's code in Chicago, hoop houses, which are membrane-covered structures, they're allowed on residential and commercially zoned land, and on residentially zoned land, you can build them up to 575 square feet with a 12-foot apex. Just for comparison, the Virgil family's hoop house has a 9-foot apex and is only 300 square feet. So I would encourage you all to explore this topic further, facilitate an open community discussion, put this on the agenda. And finally, I would like to extend an invitation to all of you to come to Chicago for a guided tour by yours truly to check out some hoop houses with urban growers, backyard growers, and city staff. Thank you.
Okay. Clerk Spencer, we're done, yes?
Yes, and I apologize once again.
Okay, so that's it for public forum for those who signed up at this time. Is there anybody who did not have an opportunity to sign up on the sign-in sheet but wishes to address the council at this time? If so, please raise your hand so I can get a count. Anybody who has not had a chance to address council? Okay, I see two gentlemen on this side. Anyone else? All right, we'll go with the man who's walking first, and then Mr. Pagash can go after that. Same rules applies. We ask that you state your name for the record.
Yeah, hello, my name is A.J. Schmitz. I've lived in Elmhurst in the same house for 42 years in the 5th Ward. The first time I ever spoke at one of these meetings was about 25 years ago. Today's the second time, and it's really disappointing to have to be here. It's just amazing. It just seems like so many things have gone wrong here with the legal process, which I know nothing about, but just with common sense, which I do have a feeling for, and I hope we can do better. And I know the meeting started out this evening with, city clerks being congratulated, and that's all good. I'm sure you do a good job. What you really want to do, each and every one of you, is be congratulated by your constituents. That's who you want to impress. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pagash, you had your hand up.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys. I'm here to thank the council. You had somebody buy land that belonged to the city. Come to a lot of meetings. You gave a lot of land away for $1. You paid for a lot of land at exorbitant prices. So you had somebody buy it. Surely like to know who determined that $5. For the Park District, you need 3 realtors to determine what the price of the land was. So if you can come up with that gentleman's name that said that land that's going to be bought is $5 square foot, I'd appreciate it. To the alderman, here's the people you represent. You don't see groups like this on a normal basis. You see 3 or 4. Right now they got a cause. 90% of the time, 99% of the time, whatever the public says, has very little influence on this council. Some aldermen have said they voted me in. That makes them believe I know it's right. You won't see this size of group again. You won't. I doubt if any of them know that these council meetings are telecast. They won't take the time to watch them. They won't see how this council acts. You know, on the average, that this council votes 13-1 on every agenda. Very little discussion on it. Homeowners have come here, debated about a couple of projects. They lost. You're all here about a little plastic house. People's neighborhoods are going to be affected, not yours. But until people of this town take an interest of what the 14 elected gentlemen up there do, and ladies, you're going to get the government that they say you're going to get. And until you show up on a regular basis, like you did tonight, you may get the government you deserve. But that's up to you. You took the time out tonight to come. Will you do it at the next meeting? And the next meeting? To allow these ladies and gentlemen know that they represent you. And that if you believe what you believe tonight, then maybe they'll change to 13-1 vote. But till you do, where I come here and I see 4 or 5 people.
I'd ask you to wrap up and
I surely will, Mayor.
address your comments to the chair. I appreciate it.
I would, but the chair, let me remind you, sir, these are the people that you oversee with these other 14 people. And until this council realizes that, this town is in trouble. They don't know it because they don't come to these meetings.
Okay, that was... That's all I had for anybody else who wanted to speak. Anybody else? Last chance. Seeing none, that concludes public forum. We're going to go on to announcements. Agenda item 6, any announcements from the dais? Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. So a couple meetings ago, there was a report on the agenda from this committee about electric aggregation, and I just wanted to provide a quick update.
Alderman York, you know what? I'm going to ask you to pause for a second.
Sure.
I'm going to give anybody in the audience an opportunity who wishes to leave, give them an opportunity to file out so we can conduct their meeting. Well, looks like you cleared the room, Alderman York.
Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. So as I started to mention, a couple of meetings ago, we passed a report authorizing the committee to start the electric aggregation process. As part of that, we went on to the market and got some indicative pricing on aggregation supply. And that pricing actually came in the same day that ComEd announced their rates for the upcoming period, and the rates for the aggregation were actually higher than the announced rates for from the utility. So therefore, we did not go to market, nor will we be going to market in the foreseeable future. I would like to just remind folks that pluginillinois.com is a great resource It's actually pluginillinois.org is a great resource for folks who are interested in alternative electric supply suppliers, and they have a lot of really good information on there about electric choice basics and supply mixes and that type of thing. So again, aggregation won't be happening in the near future here. Thank you.
Thanks. Excuse me, ma'am. We got to leave the door open. But if someone wants to, they're more than welcome to congregate, but if they want to go downstairs, that'd be nice. All right, any other announcements? Okay, on to agenda item 7, consent agenda. At this time, is there any item on the consent agenda any alderman wishes to have removed? To vote no or provide further comment. Alderman Kennedy.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 7.6.
Okay, anyone else? Alderman Deuter.
Items 7.7 and 7.8.
7.7 and 7.8. Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 7.6, item 7.7, and item 7.8. Motion to approve. Motion by Alderman Bram, second by Alderman Deuter. Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Hark.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Kolumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Consent agenda minus items 7.6, 7.7, and 7.8 is approved. On to agenda item 7.7. This is a 7.6, really? Oh, I pulled the wrong one. There we go. Thank you. On to agenda item 7.6. This is a report out of Public Works and Buildings Committee. I would ask Clerk Spencer to read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the unit price bid for the base bid in alternate number 2 from the lowest responsible bidder, A. Lamp Concrete Contractors, Inc., for the Industrial Park Roadway Improvements Project not to exceed budget amount of $1,119,953.60 be accepted, and the city attorney be authorized to prepare the necessary city council documents. Signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Marty Deuter, Vice Chairman, Norman Leader, and unsigned by Michael J. Bram.
Okay, to put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Deuter. Alderman Kennedy, your report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason that I pulled this is because at everyone's spot on the dais, you'll find a revision to the original report. City staff originally meant to add this in, but did not get it in as part of the publication. It went out onto board docs on Thursday. That modification was made. Really, it's just a clarification. We're not changing anything material in what we're doing. It's just memorializing our discussion and highlighting the reasoning behind looking at the different alternatives. So with that, I believe I'd like to make a motion to replace the report that's in front of us, the verbiage, or what's...
Yeah, I think you want to amend. Motion to amend.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the highlighted section into the original report.
Okay, I believe everyone up on the dais has a copy of this. I'm going to read it just for the record. Well, let me do it this way. Do we have a second? Motion to amend, second by Alderman Deuter. So we have a motion and a second before us to amend the current report. As Alderman Kennedy mentioned, does not change the substantive recommendation in the report, but it just adds more information for the record. Motion to amend, adding the following paragraph, fourth paragraph. Alternate 1, roadway patching with asphalt materials is not being recommended by city staff, as the base bid, which included roadway patching and concrete materials, included the preferred patching materials at reasonable pricing. Additionally, alternate 2 includes a J-band material, which will help control future centerline roadway cracking. There's a motion and a second to amend the report and add that paragraph. Continued discussion. Anything else you want to add, Alderman Kennedy?
Well, thank you.
All right, so we're going to do 2 votes on this, folks. We have a motion to amend, which we have to vote on first. Either way, we will end up voting on the report as it stands after that vote. So, any other comments as it relates to this motion to amend? No comments on how, as it relates to this motion to amend. So, Clerk Spencer, I'm asking you to call the vote on motion to amend, adding that additional paragraph that I just read into the record.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polemski.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, should I ask for another motion now to approve this report as amended? Yeah, I think so. Okay. So, based on the amendment, it makes the previous motion irrelevant or non-existent, I guess. I will now entertain a motion to approve the report as amended. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Deuter. Alderman Kennedy, any additional comments on your now amended report?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Alderman Bram.
Yes, I just want to say that I was unable to make the committee meeting. I am in full support of this, even though it is unsigned.
Okay. Any other comments? Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino. Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polemski.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 7.6 as amended is approved. On to 7.7, it's a report out of Public Works. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the right-of-way vacation adjacent to 463 and 465 Spring Road, parentheses, as shown on the attached drawing, close parentheses, be approved with easements for existing public utilities, and that the city attorney be authorized to prepare the necessary documents for city council approval. Signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Norman Leader, signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Norman Leader, unsigned by Marty Deuter, Vice Chairman, and Michael J. Bram.
Okay, to put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve. The report and recommendation is read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Leader. Alderman Kennedy, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this report in front of you is about a right-of-way vacation. We've had many of these in the past, vacations in general of city property. And the general approach is we look at 50% of the EAV of the land and use that as a jumping off point, if you will. The report was signed looking at that for zero value, and I want to talk about why that is. And just to highlight, this is an alleyway that it's behind 2 businesses on Spring Road, on the east side of Spring Road, that's just north of Eggleston. So there's a professional building on the southern end, and then the next building up is the Meta Motors building, both of those just south of the car wash and what's the other place?
Construction place?
Office building.
Office building?
Yeah, the office building. So, reason for the $0 is, number one, the entire length, 150 foot by 15 feet, is a utility easement. So it has no, cannot be used, can't be built upon, and cannot be used to add to the buildable surface of those lots going forward. Secondly, is the alley has been maintained by the building owners for more than 20 years. So the city has not paid to pave it, the city has not paid to plow it, and during that entire time, these building owners have maintained that area. Again, it's non-buildable due to that utility easement, and because of that, they're not going to be able to do anything additional to it. They're going to be able to use it as it is today for access to the backs of their buildings, but it doesn't do anything for their businesses. The reason to go to $0 is to put this on the tax rolls. Right now, it's essentially land that we don't utilize as a city, we don't maintain as a city, and we don't get any benefit from it. The EAV of the two properties, 50%, is just over $2,000 and just over $4,000. I would argue over the 20 plus years that they've maintained it, I'm sure they've spent more than those sums of money to maintain this area. The question becomes, well, what if we do ask them to pay? What are they required to do so? The answer to that is no. We had a case probably in the last 2 or 3 months where there was a vacation on Hillside. It was also an easement. We debated back and forth between 0 and another number. We, as a council, agreed on a middle number. We went back to the resident. The resident said, no, thank you, I don't want to pay for it. They have since done some landscaping improvements and are basically using it as they were before, and it's not on the tax rolls and they didn't have to pay for it. And it's my viewpoint that it's better for us to have these on the tax rolls, get the value, and eliminate the whatever small amount of liability is, and be able to, move forward on items like this. Thank you.
Additional comments, Alderman Leader.
I can't help but have a feeling of deja vu here as I look at my friend Alderman Bram, because we've been fighting over this. Discussing since I came on the council in '05, and discussing in a friendly way. Always friendly, always smiling. And so it made a few remarks here, but I couldn't help but think, too, that I probably could have pulled out that speech from '05 and used it, changed a few numbers and just said what I said then and what I have said before, and what I sincerely hope I will be saying along with Alderman Bram for some time in the future, differing in a friendly fashion. So, talking about differ, all vacations differ. We all understand that. And if there are two constants, is that the land effectively costs the city nothing, and the pensioner has paid the upkeep. And of course, these are not buildable lots we're talking about, so the land is not on the tax rolls. So it yields nothing to the taxpayers of Elmhurst, nothing. Admittedly, the land has some functional use to the petitioner, not pensioner, petitioner, who has, in this case, as in every case that I've ever come across, fully maintained it for years at his own expense. Now, this is a very good thing because it means that since time immemorial, this land, which has been off the tax rolls to the detriment of the taxpayers of Elmhurst, will now, from time immemorial, as long as there's in Elmhurst, be on the tax rolls and be a benefit to the taxpayers of Elmhurst. I think we owe the petitioner a vote of thanks for making it possible to collect property tax on the parcel by unlocking the value of the land to the city and its taxpayers. For it is only by the granting of a vacation to a petitioner that the land can be taxed. I believe, and have always believed really, that our policy should be to get as many of these untaxed parcels on the tax rolls. I've always strongly believed that a policy of charging these and other petitioners is counterproductive and misapplied, and will lead to less generation of new tax dollars on fallow land, and that more. I say let us encourage them to step forward, not discourage them, and in doing so, we will unlock the value of scores and scores of previously untaxed parcels, and in the process, ease the burden on the existing taxpayer base. Thank you.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was present for the discussion when this was brought to our committee. The discussion focused primarily on the compensation. As you can tell from the comments already, the two of the aldermen who were present supported the transfer at no cost. That's something I didn't agree with, so I didn't sign the report. And in the meantime, I've been trying to figure out what does seem like a reasonable cost. Part of my thoughts since the meeting is to be mindful of the times that we've used city-owned land as a tool for economic development. We have TIF incentives, we have sales tax incentives. I think probably our third most important economic development tool is city-owned land. We've used it in the downtown a couple of times recently. We've used it in the industrial park. And I think that's something that makes a lot of sense to put into a development. And even if we put it in at no cost, I think it's easy to justify because the city's getting a lot in return from that economic development. So in this case, we're looking at a narrow strip of land. On the one side are the businesses that face Spring Road. On the other side, to the east of this strip of city-owned land, is a large vacant parcel that I would expect, with the conditions in Spring Road, which are thriving, I would expect that at some point that becomes a parcel that's redeveloped. So when I think about the city-owned land and the request that we vacate and transfer to the owners to the west, I think it's important that we think about what is the city getting in return. As was discussed at the committee meeting, the two businesses to the west have no plans for redeveloping their site or adding to their business or using this strategically to enhance their business. And that's okay, and I think that's particularly okay if they are suggesting that they purchase the land for what it's worth. It's actually a full value. In the case of considering a transfer for less than full value, I do think we have to justify it. And I can appreciate the argument that it's going back on the tax rolls and that by being privately owned, it's no longer a city liability. I think in those cases, the revenue that we'll see in property taxes is very slight. It would be a very slight increase. And the decrease in liability, while real, it would also be a slight decrease. I don't think either of those is enough to justify letting this parcel that the assessor says is worth $12,000 go for $0. I would certainly consider this request if they came back with a proposal to pay what it's worth, or if they brought us a proposal that showed how they were going to use it in a way that brought more benefit to the residents of Elmhurst. So at this time, I don't support the report for this vacation at no cost.
Any other comments? Alderman Levin.
I have a question and a comment. My question is the property which is adjacent to the proposed vacation alley on Spring Road, is that owned only by two owners?
Yes.
So there's no one on either end of it, and there's no one in the middle.
Correct.
All right. So I think I have some procedural thoughts. I mean, the first one is, by looking at this document, it doesn't even have the addresses on it, doesn't have a picture. It was really hard to see what we were considering, and even when you look at Google Earth, it's not clear who owns what. So I do think it would be sort of a constructive comment, helpful when we vote on these, if we know exactly what it is. This really didn't come onto my radar because I read the report when it was in committee, and it was talking about the 50% valuation. I thought that seemed reasonable, and error's mine, but I didn't realize that we had gone off that when I looked at the final report. I have two concerns. One is, I understand what others are saying in terms of the policy, and we've had this policy, and the idea was, because we've had this discussion so many times, maybe it's time to revisit the policy. But if it's not, then I guess we need to look at a reason to vary from the policy. When I look at the specific instance for these applicants, which they're both in my ward, I consider the owners personal friends. I was going to say just one of them, but then the other would wonder, but they're both friends. And so I'm supportive of this. I understand the use, but I thought it was fair. They had proposed to pay something for it, and I was surprised to see that we underbid them. They did do upkeep for it, but when you look at even the picture on Google Earth, they're using it. They're using it to park their cars. If we had plowed it, they wouldn't be allowed to park their cars there because it's our alley. So I'm not criticizing them for it, but it seemed to me that paying some minimal amount, which is clearly affordable, was the fair thing to do, given that we are giving up land that has a use, and it's consistent with the policy, and it seems to be what they were thinking when they came in. So land, it has an easement, but when you add on to it, if someone wants to build something else back there, we are increasing the setback so that more can be built. It obviously has value. So I'd like to hear what others have to say, but I'm not against giving the property to them, but I just think it would have been a better policy to do it in conjunction with our policy. Thank you.
Any other comments? Alderman Toledo.
I also have a question and a comment, if I may. The question is, did the committee get any numbers calculated on what the actual tax benefit would be for this property if it was vacated? What the future property tax amount would be on an annual basis, let's say, for example?
We did not.
So then my comment would be, I also agree along the lines of what Alderman Levin was saying with regards to kind of, the policy. And we always see that the policy is stated, and then, for a number of times we've come and gone zero. I appreciate Alderman Kennedy's comments on the fact, though, that in a not long ago, we asked for some money. The property owner decided not to go ahead and pay it. So I think, I think that this comes up enough that maybe we do need to revisit the policy. I understand the argument of, well, we give a price, they say no, and that's everyone's right to say no. I almost yearn for a more opportunity to negotiate with the two parties. I know that our committee process is not very conducive to negotiation. Certainly, I've lived that on DP&Z. But it might be worthwhile looking at a way to allow for some give and take expression versus just kind of, here's our offer from the city council and take it or leave it. I suppose an applicant could come back and offer an alternate proposal, which would have to go back through the whole process. It seems kind of insurmountable for a property that's usually a small piece of a parcel, which is usually what we're talking about in a vacation. Right now, I'm inclined I would like to see some value, some monies paid for this property. So right now, I'm not in favor of the report as it's written. Thank you.
Any other comments? Alderman Dunn.
My belief on this issue is these two businesses approached the city wanting to purchase some land at a reasonable value. I think it would behoove us to get some value out of that. I think our policy sets a nice starting point, and it's fairly a reasonable starting point. This land, should it be vacated, would be more on the lines of a commercial square footage than residential, which in my opinion has even more value. I know it's encumbered by an easement, but to not seek any reimbursement or consideration for it, I don't think that's the right way to go. I would have liked to have seen us get something for the land. So I am, at this point, I'm not in support of giving it away for $0. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Levin, hold on, Alderman Levin. I want to make sure everyone who hasn't had a chance to speak here, chance to speak. Alderman Bram, I don't believe we've heard from you.
No, you have not on this issue as of yet, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
May I
floor is yours.
proceed? Floor is yours. Thank you. As Alderman Leader has already stated, we have differing perspective or viewpoints on this issue over the many years. And I respect his as well as he stated he respects mine. I think that the biggest point I want to make is everything that the city owns is an asset, and every asset has a value, land included. One of the things that I always question is when someone comments of, well, this would be great, we'll put it on the tax rolls. Well, I always ask the question, why can't we have both? Put it on the tax rolls and charge for what it's worth. Policy does state about EAV. We're not even talking about market value, which typically is, market value is higher than EAV typically. So we're not even talking about market value. And the starting point in the policy does state 50%. It depends on what the benefits are, and it's a case-by-case basis. But I think to charge $0 other than the attorney fees and any other fees that are needed for the transaction is not doing what's right for the taxpayers of Elmhurst. And I've said this on pretty much every single case that's come before us, especially those who've come before us with a recommendation of zero cost. And I don't also agree that, you know, there's no value to the petitioners. And I think Alderman Deuter made mention that the businesses have no plan for advancement at this time. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't add value to their business. It adds value to their property. If they deem to do something, it adds value because they would be able to build a larger building because of the stormwater calculations would be figured in with that additional property. So even though it's not buildable or not subdividable, there is value. There is value to the petitioners. As soon as they would sign the dotted line for no cost, their value of that property goes up. And therefore, that's an asset. Maybe not to everybody in the city of Elmhurst, but it is an asset to the petitioners who would like to acquire the vacation, the right-of-way. It was also stated about, you know, what other residents have done. That they walked away, but they still used the land. Well, shame on them if that's the case. Not shame on them for not purchasing the right-of-way for what was offered, but shame on them for using the land because that is technically not their land to use per their wishes. They can use it as public land, but not solely for themselves. And in regards to this, I commend the petitioners for maintaining the property. But I'll also say is they shouldn't have been. Because it's not their property to maintain. Now, mind you, they may or may not have used it. I don't know, more than a public utility or a public alley. I don't know, and at this point, I don't care. That's something for city administration to be concerned about, not an elected body. But as a group of elected officials, an asset's an asset, and I think a zero fee shouldn't be done in any case, including this case. So I cannot support this report as read.
No one else for first-time comments? Alderman Levin, you wanted to?
Yes, I don't criticize the the businesses that asked for this, I don't criticize them for using it. They are both longtime businesses that have been contributors, not only with their business, but what they do for the community. But I would hate to see this fail from hearing the number of votes. I would like to move to amend the report to state the value at the 50% that's quoted in the report, as opposed to no consideration.
Okay, just to clarify, Mr. Levin, before I ask for a second. In the middle of the third paragraph, it states that the 50% value for the property is $2,070 for part of it, and the other part is $4,140. So your motion is to take those numbers and recommend that that's what these owners be charged. Or not the owners, but I guess we'll call them the applicants, the two businesses interested. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have a motion to change the consideration of what it would take to vacate this property to these two different folks, from 0, as were recommended in the report, to 50% of the value, which is stated in the report. Is there anybody on the dais who's unclear on this motion? I will ask for a second on this motion. Second by Alderman Deuter. So we have a motion and a second to amend the report, bumping it from no cost to 50% of value as stated in the report. Continued conversation. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to highlight in the fact when I wasn't around when the policy was created, but as I've been around many of these, the starting point of 50% has typically been used when there are no encumbrances. So in this case, there's a utility easement along the entire length of this alleyway. So it can never be built upon. So if either of these businesses ever grow, they have one option. They can go up because their footprint is dictated on the size of the parcel that they have in both cases. So I think 50% is way too high. I could see advocating something less than that, but I think it's too much. There was a comment made about the stormwater. There's no value. The entire area is impervious. So whether or not the petitioners are ultimately buy or get this piece of land, it's not going to change the size of the building that they can put there because, again, they're tied in by the easement and the fact that it's 100% impervious. There was a comment about a lot to the east of these buildings, to the east of the alleyway. That lot is not germane to this discussion. It's currently zoned residential. So that whole process would have to take place for anything to happen beyond the economic development that's in that area today. So I am not in favor of the 50% for the reasons that I stated. And I think that number is too much for what the situation is here for this land. Thank you.
Alderman Honquist.
Yeah, I'd like to support Alderman Kennedy on this for two reasons. Number one, we've spent a lot of time up here talking about being a good partner to our business partners, which is what we have here. They've been there, they've maintained the land, and they're asking to take over that land and then pay property tax on it. For the price of whether it's $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, I'm guessing the property tax will recoup that very quickly and will continue to do so into the future. And finally, I always find it interesting how we quibble over $5,000 and $10,000 and pass $1 million 5 minutes later. So I think we should just move forward and support the chairman. Thank you.
Any comments? Alderman Levin.
I do think that you cannot build on the land, but when you increase the size of the lot, you can build a bigger building on it because you have a larger size lot.
You can't.
You can't? Well, maybe.
You got a sidewalk, and an alleyway.
Well,
That's all you got.
I'll stand, I might be wrong, but I'll stand on it anyway, because if you have a 50-foot deep lot, and even though if you add 10 feet, you can build more because you have more square footage, and it's a bulk requirement. And I mean, I'm not wed one way or the other. I just think personally that's what's fair. I respect what the committee did, and I am a little bit loath to quibble with it, but I think that the amount is nominal enough that it's fair all the way around at the 50%.
Okay. Alderman Polomsky.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the work of the committee, and I know we're not talking large dollar amounts like our budget, but I think what I keep going back to is the letter from both businesses who have contributed to Spring Road and to the community as a whole, asking if they can purchase this for a reasonable rate. And I have a hard time pinpointing exactly what that is, knowing that there are city utilities that make it not a buildable portion of the parcel, but they have approached us asking to purchase this. So I think what's most reasonable is the 50% amount, so the amended request.
Alderman Bram?
Thank you. And I was going to reiterate just what Alderman Polomsky said. I mean, they came to us, they requested it, they stated that they're willing to pay a reasonable rate. And what that rate is, if this amendment moves forward, is $2.76 per square foot. Where in the city of Elmhurst are you getting paying $2.76 a square foot? 2 weeks ago, we leased property for, I believe it was Verizon, at $5 a square foot. But here, we're selling property, albeit encumbered, and I agree, there is an encumbrance on it, for $2.76 a square foot. I quite honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of the current policy, because I think it is really generous to the petitioners in general. But with that said, I think a non-zero amount, if there is consensus or the majority of the council, is better than a zero amount. And $2.76 a square foot is a great deal. So I hope that we have full support for that, for the amendment as stated.
Any other comments? Ask Clerk Spencer to call the vote on the motion to amend the report and vacate the property for the 50% of value listed in two different places here. Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Onquist.
No.
Kennedy.
No.
Mulliner.
No.
Brennan.
No.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Goiter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
No.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
Paludo.
Aye.
York.
No.
Okay, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 8. 8 ayes and 6 nays.
8 ayes, 6 nays, motion carries. Motion to amend is approved. So the report will be amended to recommend that the city vacate the property at 50% of value as stated in the report, which is broken into two figures, 50% at $2,070 and the other 50% being $4,140. Okay, that's our amended report before us. Do I have to ask for it? Yeah, okay, so now I will ask for a motion to approve the report as amended. Motion by Alderman Deuter, second by Alderman Bram. Continued discussion on the amended report. Any continued discussion? Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to reiterate the fact that it's too high. We have an encumbered piece of property. We have never, in the course of our recent history, ever required a petitioner to pay the 50% on something they can't do something with of their liking going forward. The only thing this can ever be is an alley, okay? That's all it can ever be. Alderman Bram said, you know, $2.76 a square foot is a good deal. It's a terrible deal. I don't get to do anything with my $2.76 square foot piece of anything, other than the fact that now I own it, you know? It's like owning free parking in Monopoly. I don't get to do anything with it. I just pass through it. It doesn't do anything for me, right? I think it's too much. If I may, Mr. Mayor, am I allowed to make a motion to amend or beyond what we're doing today?
Hold on a second, I was just looking that up. I actually think you can. Takes precedent only to the motion which it applies. We have a motion to approve the report as amended. It does not mean you cannot amend. In fact, if you really wanted to, you could motion to amend an amendment, but you can't motion to amend an amendment to be amended, which would be a motion in the third degree. So to answer your question, technically, you can motion to amend this report if you would like.
Okay, with that, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to amend that the property at 463 Spring Road have a value of $1,000 and the property at 465 a value of $2,000.
Okay, so before I ask for a second, I'd ask council to pay attention 1 second, Alderman Leader. We have a motion to amend the report, which would change the recommendation that the city vacate the property. It's the same piece of property we're splitting into two. I think council is aware of that. For instead of the 2,070 as the current report reflects and the 4,140, motion is to vacate the property for $1,000 and $2,000 respectively. Does everyone on the council understand this motion? I will now entertain a second. Alderman Leader, we have a motion before us to amend the report and reduce those values to 1,000 and 2,000. Alderman Kennedy, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the amendment. I think I've made my case as to why it would make sense. It's basically in round numbers, a half of a half, so 25% instead of 50%. I think it's a good approach to get this done for all those reasons. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Alderman Deuter, I don't. You look so dejected when I looked at Alderman Brand.
Oh, no, I was just going to defer. Maybe he's going to say what I was going to say, and we don't have to.
That would be something.
I would.
Alderman Bram.
Thank you. Alderman Deuter, go first. No, I'm kidding. So I'll just say one thing, that it does add value to the property owners. I already said this in my previous comments, but I'm just going to clarify since it was just rebutted, is as soon as this piece gets sold, the property value goes up per the market value. So whatever we sell it for, if it's 50% EAV, 25% EAV, that property owner, both these property owners, their property value goes up. So there's value.
Did you do it, Alderman Deuter?
Good enough.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments as it relates to the amendment? Seeing no comments, I'll remind council that I will now ask Clerk Spencer to call the vote on the recommendation that the city vacate the property for $1,000 and $2,000 respectively. Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
No.
Park.
No.
Onquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
No.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polemski.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
10 ayes and 4 nays.
10 ayes, phone it. Pardon me. 9:25 time check. 10 ayes, 4 nays. Motion to amend is approved. The report before us now says $1,000 for the one parcel and $2,000 for the other. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the further amended report with those two values in it. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Deuter. Any additional conversation? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, call the vote on the final amended report.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
13 ayes, 1 nay.
13 ayes, 1 nay, motion carries. Agenda item 7.7, report as amended is approved. 7.7, 7.8 was pulled as well. On to agenda item 7.8. This is a report out of Public Affairs. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you read the recommendation.
Okay, 7.8. It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Affairs and Safety Committee that the City Council establish a Public Arts Commission, signed by Scott Levin, Chairman, Danny Palumski, Vice Chairman, Bob Dunn.
Okay, to put this before council, I ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Palumski. Alderman Levin, your report.
Thank you. It's too bad we say what I consider some good news, unless the report doesn't pass, for the end. But this was, although Alderman Palumski pulled it, I'm glad you did. Sorry, Alderman Deuter, is it? I feel like Mayor Morley. I think it's important that it is pulled because this really should be featured. This is something new, and it's something I think will be a remarkable addition to our community. A number of people interested in the arts, some of whom spoke tonight, came forward and talked to Alderman Deuter and talked about the idea of having some sort of public arts commission. And she worked with Mayor Morley and the members of these various factions and came up with a very detailed proposal that was given as a referral to our committee, and she asked me to sign on, and I was pleased to do so. This commission is tied into our plans that talk about public art installations and how art vitalizes a community and the contributions it makes to a community in terms of making it a better place to live. And the people working on this talked about how much art we have here and the depth of the various collections. And this is in terms of people who look at the concerns of big government, and I've heard, I guess, as we go through what I hear from public comment, all the requirements we have to staff a public body, and mindful of the fact that we have to go through all the steps of minutes and agendas and all those things for these people that want to contribute to our community. It's worth it. It's not a budget item other than some staff support. They're going to inventory the public art we have. They're going to talk about procedures for how we can increase public art, and I think it's a great thing for our community as we join some other fine communities that have similar kinds of commissions. So I'm pleased to offer this as something I wholeheartedly support.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Levin just gave a fine overview. I just want to add a couple of comments that are more giving some credit and expressing some appreciation. I think we would not be looking at this report tonight if it weren't for an article about Roz Long that appeared in Suburban Life in December 2015. And I think Roz would probably be here tonight if this were not the Monday after Art in the Park, the event that she puts a tremendous amount of effort into organizing and putting on for the community. So in that article that was featured in 2015, one of the things that she said at the end of the article is that she would like to see Elmhurst create an arts council. And it was, you know, I checked in with her after that article. I wanted to understand what her ideas were and offer to support her in that effort. And started a series of conversations that took a number of different turns. Had numerous conversations with Mayor Morley, who was supportive at each of those turns and provided guidance that was helpful. One of his suggestions was that we form a working group to put some more detail into the idea that was taking shape, which was the idea of a public art program. And I want to recognize 4 other folks who participated: Annette Armstrong, who we heard from earlier tonight, Roz Long, Amy Lloyd, and Cheryl Lynn Natt. They all were helpful in providing ideas and resources and their energy and expertise. And then the other person who I want to call out to recognize is John McKinnon, also here earlier tonight, Executive Director of the Art Museum. And he hasn't been in town that long, but since he came to town and heard of this initiative shortly after he came to town, he has pledged the museum's full support, including staff support, to get this initiative underway. And I also want to recognize the PA&S committee. They provided helpful questions and comments and support as this moved through the committee process. So it is great to have a proposal before us that hasn't generated as much positive feedback as this one has. So I appreciate all the work that got it to this point, and look forward to seeing what this group accomplishes. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to amend. No? Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Lundquist. Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner. Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. On to reports and recommendations of appointed and elected officials. 8.1, Mayor Morley, that's me. Alderman Deuter already mentioned this briefly, but Roz Long, Art in the Park, had its 22nd iteration last weekend, and I think for the first time in 3 years had terrific weather. Might be the best weather in the last 5 years. We appreciate all the hard work that Roz Long, the Elmhurst Park District, and everyone else involved does to really make that iconic event work. Brings lots and lots and lots of people in from out of town. It's one of the events that brings so many people in from out of town, not only the Elmhurst residents who get to participate, but everybody else. So I appreciate that. Second part of my report, I was very fortunate. Let's see if I get my dates right. On a week and a half ago, April, was it 5th and 6th? No, it's 28th and 29th. Yeah? Springfield. 25th and 26th. I must be looking at the wrong. Oh, there it is. Yes, 25th and 26th. Sorry about that. Anyway, as most of the council knows, we are a member of DuPage Mayors and Managers. As most of the council knows, we usually do, there is offered a drive-down where local elected officials can drive down to Springfield as a group and kind of speak with one voice and try to be heard over the rabble-rousing that's going on down there. And it's quite an event. We went down with DuPage Mayors and Managers. IML was also down there at the same time. Alderman Polumsky, Alderman Deuter, Alderman Toledo, City Manager Grabowski, and myself went down. We got to see in all aspects how the sausage is made down there. And I do appreciate those who participated. We had some very good meetings. Got to see some good insight as to how things work down there, how quickly things can change down there, and how sometimes good ideas can kind of be gunked up with bad ideas and get killed almost immediately. Anyway, long story short, it was very positive. We did advocate for some specific issues of local control, not only for us, but also advocate for LGDF, which is the funding that we get, which is always on the table for them to try to reduce. LGDF comes back to Elmhurst in the tune of almost $4.2 million a year. And there's been talk at Springfield to reduce that number anywhere from 10 to 50%, not just once, but permanently. So appreciate Alderman Plumsky, Deuter, and Toledo, and City Manager Grabowski for heading down. That's it for me. I know that after City Manager Grabowski, Alderman Dunn has some exciting news, but I'll go to City Manager Grabowski first.
Thank you. 2 items tonight. A week ago Saturday, Elmhurst College held the annual recycling extravaganza event. It was extremely successful again, and I want to thank the college for putting that on. I want to thank the city staff who participated in that as well. And then last week on Wednesday, we held an open house for the draft sub-area plan that involves 5 different areas of the community that we're studying. That too was very successful. There's information on the city website, and we are taking public comments until May 18th. So if people go online and look at that or want to use the mapping tool, they can still do that until May 18th. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Dunn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to give a quick update on the ONCC meeting, some of the highlights of that from last Friday, May 4th. I attended that, and we were happy to hear that the bylaws committee for the ONCC had been meeting for a month or so to look at establishing membership and the rules of the new permanent Fly Quiet committee, and this would be a standing committee, and that would be staffed with 11 voting members. Right now there are 9s in the ad hoc committee, so it would be expanded by 2. There were 7 different communities that applied for those 2 seats, applied via a letter of interest, and we had done that on several occasions, both with the ad hoc committee and as well as the standing Fly Quiet committee. And Elmhurst, both Elmhurst and Wooddale were appointed to that committee. The chair of the ONCC, she indicated that Elmhurst was selected for a number of factors, one being there was a lack of Southern representation from Southern communities on the Fly Quiet committee. And certainly we're south of the airport. She also recognized the fact of how active Elmhurst has been, both by city staff, our elected officials, and the general public, and our residents collectively. So certainly that was one of the main drivers. Also, the chair mentioned to me offline that they appreciated our understanding of the technical issues of O'Hare and those topics and issues surrounding Fly Quiet. So that was commendable on our part to be very educated on the issues, which was another reason why we were selected. Wooddale was selected because of the significant noise changes that were shown in modeling that occurred as a result of the O'Hare modernization plan. They were one of the few committees that had significant increases in noise, so that's why they were selected. Unfortunately, that puts on the committee of 11 only 2 diagonal committees and 9 members that are more so on the east-west runway alliance. So that was good news. Conspicuously absent from the selection was Park Ridge. We really did expect them to get a seat on there. And There was also a panel discussion by some pilots and United Airlines and American Airlines personnel. They did mention a few items that I thought were interesting. They framed the responsibilities. The City of Chicago and the CDA are in charge of the runway, the ground, the airport. They run that, and the FAA is in charge of the air. So the air is a bit more complex since it's three-dimensional, and they have to worry about the interface with other surrounding airports. So I thought that was interesting. Also, the pilots that were there talked about the reduced thrust that was now being used on takeoffs, which is due to the efficiency of the aircraft. So that positively impacts noise, and all the aircraft that United and American fly now are two-engine aircraft, which also helps with noise. They admitted that a lot of pilots live around the airports, so they can get to work easily. So they're sensitive to those type of noise issues. So that's my report.
Thank you, Alderman Dunn. Any other reports? Alderman Honquist.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to report that our committee will be hearing the Hoop House case, that it's already in the works, that I'm waiting on city staff to come back with confirmation that they've got the information put together so that we can review it as a committee. Originally, we were going to try and do that next committee meeting next week, but we may not have all the information together. So the next time would be right after Memorial Day, and I thought that might be too close to vacations because sometimes we get criticized for having a big event right next to end of school kind of a thing. So it may go to middle of June. So that's what we're considering right now. If staff has all the information, we will do it next Monday. Just wanted to report. Thank you.
Okay, any other reports? Alderman Bram.
Yes, thank you. Kind of tying into the O'Hare report by Alderman Dunn, this weekend a monumental event occurred actually at O'Hare, and that is the world's largest passenger plane, being the A380, landed at O'Hare. I bring this up because it might not be immediate impact to Elmhurst residents, but the planes are getting much, much larger. It's a 261-foot wingspan. I don't know what runway was utilized to land such a large passenger plane, but this just shows you on how important the O'Hare issue is to the community of Elmhurst, because these planes will need more runway, longer takeoffs, longer ascent, longer descent, due to the just size of it. And even if the capability might not be able to utilize the runway that most impacts Elmhurst residents, there is a possibility then that the other larger, maybe not the largest passenger plane, but the larger ones will then be defaulted to the runways that do impact Elmhurst. The only other question on that would be, FAIR made a recommendation, multiple recommendations in regards to coming to speak at Elmhurst, but also about what they feel would be a fair proposal, no pun intended. And I was hoping to get some feedback from City Manager Grabowski on if that recommendation was received and is the city moving forward on that. And then just one other item separate from that is
Alderman Bram, let me stop you right there. I missed the first part of your sentence when you said you're looking for information on the recommendation. What recommendation were you talking about?
FAIR, or I believe it might have been Barb, one of the City of Elmhurst residents, someone sent an email that I remember seeing in my inbox in regards to FAIR, the organization FAIR, making recommendations on what they think would be appropriate to distribute noise amongst all communities. But also I thought in the email they made mention of coming to speak to the City of Elmhurst. So those two pieces of that email.
You want to ask City Manager Grabowski if he knows anything about them coming to speak to us?
I thought the request was to him, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but so I was seeing if there's any dialogue at all between FAIR and the city, and if not, will there be, unless I misread that email where it wasn't directed at the city manager.
Yeah, go ahead.
As Alderman Dunn indicated, we've been in contact with the communities on kind of the northeast corner of the airport. Glenview was just made a member of ONCC. It's one of the communities we contacted to join the group. They did follow through with that. So we've been in touch with them, and at ONCC meetings, we've had discussions with the kind of the diagonal communities, as we're calling them. So there is communication. FAIR represents, a number of the members of FAIR are in that northeast portion of the airport. So in a roundabout way, yes, we have been in touch with communities that are members.
Thank you. And the second part was about 294 expansion. I think I've seen it somewhere over the weekend of that topic's coming up again. I know we had a 294 discussion here at City Hall, but it was more about the ramps, off ramps, and not about the actual expansion to however many lanes in each direction. I was just wondering if the city knows anything about where that is. What is the plan? Are there going to be more community discussions, especially here in town?
Go ahead. I'm trying to remember my meeting about it.
Yes, we've had a number of meetings on that. Alderman Bram, as you indicated, initially it was over the exit ramp from I-294 onto County Line Road. That is moving forward. What complicated that was the announcement that they were going to widen I-294 from anywhere from 5 lanes to 6 lanes in each direction. It varies as you go up and down the interstate. Certainly we can put more information together because the tollway website has some really nice videos that they put together. And I'll take the opportunity to also kind of toot our own horn here in Elmhurst. We brought to their attention a couple traffic tie-ups that I'm sure they knew about, but the backups on I-290 that are created every afternoon southbound creates traffic jams through downtown Elmhurst. We made the chairman aware of that, and they took us very seriously on that. And so there'll be a lot of changes on the exit from where 294, I-290, and 88 all kind of merge and then split. They're making some great improvements there. And then they're also making some significant improvements north on 294, northbound 294 to westbound 290. If you're familiar with that area, that backs up with a lot of semi-trucks. They're completely changing that ramp design to help that flow as well. So there's significant improvements up and down the corridor, and what I'll do is send out some information to the alderman with some links because the videos really explained it a lot better than I can verbally.
Thank you.
Okay, any other reports? Seeing none, we'll go on to agenda item 9. This is a resolution. What did I do with this resolution? Resolution for R-46-2018. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to
a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a settlement agreement and general release.
Okay, let me put this, I'm going to ask for a motion to put this before council as read, and then City Attorney Streen has to make a statement. Motion by Alderman Bram, second by Alderman Mulliner. Before we go on to discussion, City Attorney Storino regarding the settlement.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This represents a settlement agreement between the city and a contractor, Copenhagen Construction. It involves a public works project within the city. The contractor was the low bidder on this project. He could not perform under the contract, sought out of the contract, asked the city to release him from the contract. The city and the contractor negotiated a settlement amount in the amount of $80,000, and the contractor will be relieved of his obligation to perform under that contract for the settlement sum of $80,000.
Okay, any other comments related to the motion before us? Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Honquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 9.1 is approved. On to agenda item 10, any other business? Any other business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Honquist. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.